Nurses are set to strike later this week over demands of a pay rise and better conditions. However, one possibility to improve working standards raised by the Health Secretary is the use of body cams to help protect them from aggressive patients. Now, this comes after a trial in Oxford, which seemed to go down relatively well. Clean, do you think it is an answer? Do you think our nurses might feel a bit happier, safer, more protected?
Which, of course, they should be.
Absolutely, yeah.
I don't know, I'm in two minds, because I keep thinking, well, how much are those body cams going to cost? And surely, if they're going to spend however many thousands on them, why can't they just spend thousands on giving them a pay rise, which is what they're after and what they deserve? So that bit of it doesn't make sense, because on one hand, it's like, oh, there's no money to give them, and then on the other hand, oh, but we can give you a body cam. That's got to be a fortune. However, I do watch, I have to say, because I love all the hospital programmes, and I watch A&E After Dark. I'm a bit addicted to that. I know I need to get out more. But anyway, but when I watch it, it is shocking. And it's normally filmed on a Friday and Saturday night, and the majority of the patients that are coming in are incredibly drunk, or drugs, incredibly abusive. And every time I watch it, I think, I don't know how they do it, you know, because they are so violent and nasty towards the nurses. The A&E department's full of police. Yeah. If it makes the nurses feel safer, then obviously I would be all for it. It's down to them how they feel. But equally, who's going to... I don't know how that's going to work. Well, the police have body cams when they're there.
Yeah, that's true. And it's not exactly going to protect you if you're dealing with a
They're not going to go, better not have a go at her because she's got a body cam.
Absolutely. It might be a retrospective thing where if there's a complaint or something else afterwards, the evidence is then useful. But in the moment, it's not necessarily going to protect you.
No, the person involved will be too far gone. And obviously it is a problem, because I've got some facts here that in November 2020, the police say there are 80 reported incidents involving violence and aggression towards nurses. But by November 2021, that figure had doubled to 180, more than doubled. So that is shocking. But looking at the nurses' pay dispute, at the bottom of all this, there are two things. The nurses want more money, but will simply giving them more money persuade more people to be nurses, because we've got a recruitment problem anyway. And I think that body cams might be part of the answer, but as far as I'm concerned, there are all sorts of things about working all the long hours and being a nurse that make the job quite unattractive or make it more demanding than it needs to be. And one of them is lack of free parking. So, you know, amazingly, you go to the hospital, you drive around any great big modern hospital, and it's pay to park. And very few spaces allocated for surgeons, top-end staff and so on. And all over Britain, nurses are paying to park, which is...
shocked
by that. Shocking, absolutely shocking. So I think that's a big issue as well, and body cams is just one of the things. And as Colleen says, the cost of those body cams won't be new money. It'll come out of the NHS funding, because the government's already said they're not going to give them any more money. Shocking. And finally, can somebody rearrange the National Health Service so nurses don't have to do so much paperwork? What they need to be doing is being nurses, not being clerical staff. So that aspect of their job needs to be removed and processed through someone who specialises in that. Because I just think there are all sorts of things about being a nurse today that aren't what people originally signed up for.
And also, they're working the longest hours, sometimes 12 and 14-hour shifts a day, aren't they? 5 and 6 days a week, and they deserve every penny that they can get out of us, because, honestly, they've looked after us all during COVID, through everything we've been through. So, and I've been to accident emergency loads of times of a night with the kids, if they've, like, twisted their arm or something, you go down there, and it is like a war zone down there, especially on a Friday and Saturday night.
But is the answer to put outside the hospital, if someone's being brought to a hospital and they're drunk and violent, they shouldn't even be taken into the building.
No, they should be kept somewhere away from everyone
bin outside, where they can be hosed down and someone can go in. Never mind about body cam, body armour.
It's true. This trial in Oxford has found that nurses do feel safer as a result of these cameras being part of the uniform, but privacy campaigners have confidentiality concerns about maybe sensitive medical information suddenly being sort of handed over to the police or whatever. I know we had 2 nurses in our audience today. One is very much for the cameras, having been attacked actually at work. But another nurse in our audience today said, I agree with the idea of it, but is it Big Brother all of a sudden in the workplace again? So you can see both perspectives. But the fact we have to even have the conversation...
I know, yeah.
It's shocking.
...is shocking when we're talking about good people trying to do good work to help all of us. So we asked you at home, actually, we had a bit of a poll and we asked, do you think our nurses should be wearing body cams for their safety? And 57% of you said yes. So there we go. We want our nurses to be safe, basically. A new campaign encouraging men to challenge and identify sexual harassment amongst their friends has been launched throughout Darlington town centre. Now, these posters include statements such as, if you're still cracking on when she's already said no, you're on your own, mate. We have also seen similar campaigns throughout the UK, so the tube stations here in London and everything else. Is it a powerful message? Is this the way to do it, Janet? Do you think it'll ring home to anyone that sort of carries out this sort of behaviour, or is it just another poster?
I'd like to think it would. I've seen them on the underground, and the government is bringing a bill through Parliament at the moment that's going to make sexual harassment, street harassment, a punishable offence. So if you're going to walking down the street and you get harassed, wolf whistles, you know, threatened, intimidated, groped, someone's following you, all that is going to be covered by this bill, and it's called the Protection from Sex-Based Harassment Public Bill. Now, I approve of all of that, but where are the police going to, you know, where are all the people that are going to police it, enforce it, fine it? Regarding these posters, I hope they work, but travelling on public transport at the moment is a bit of a lottery. It's not just like one bloke shouting at you in the street. It's a group of blokes coming home from work, from a building site or something like that. They've left the building, and a lot of building sites now have signs that say, we don't condone that behaviour, we're good employers. But when those blokes have a few drinks and get on the underground, it's a different story. And only last week I was a bloke standing there and there was a seat that said reserved for older people. And I went, can I sit in that? And he went, no, I've done my day's work or whatever, and sat down and proceeded to watch porn on his phone. So that's...
unsavoury.
Well, I'm afraid,
that's a different
you know,
poster.
you'd like to think the posters would work, but, you know...
I think the problem is, I think they're a good idea. I think it's good to maybe make people think about it. But the problem is that a lot of the times when that happens, whether it's in a nightclub or later on at night, I think the problem is drink anyway takes all sense away from them. So they don't remember that poster. Yeah. And then the next day, even if they're arrested, it's like, well, I don't know what I was doing. I was so drunk. And having watched all these reality shows, because I watched the police one as well, I feel like I could be a friend.
You could, yeah.
But having watched them, the most frustrating thing at the end of all these police shows is it tells you what happened to them,
yes,
and it's actually released without charge or a £20 fine. And I'm thinking, that's just wasting police time. If they're not, if the police are going to do their job, then the people above that, the courts and all that, need to do theirs. That's the deterrent.
Yeah.
You know, we're not messing about. If you get done for this, it's going to be a big fine and possibly, you know, even if it's 48 hours or whatever in prison, that will make people think. Yeah. Not a poster.
Yeah, I agree, because already laws exist. New laws have been brought in to ban controlling behaviour and stalking as well. And yet the number of cases of stalking that actually reach the court and see that person get a lengthy prison sentence are very, very small. And only recently, a man was convicted of controlling behaviour towards his partner, and the behaviour was horrendous. And it was a time they were splitting up. And I wrote about it because I could not believe that he got a fine of about 800 quid for a relationship that had gone on several decades. And until we start, as Colleen has said, really hitting people hard in their pockets, taking away, you know, their belongings. I mean, how do you get the message across? It's got to hit them hard.
I think it's a good idea, and I think at least they're trying. And if it stops a few people from like groping someone or whatever,
but if they were opting out at where we live,
there used to be Stop, Look and Listen. There was all these different campaigns, and it didn't. And think once, think twice, think bike. So maybe this will help people that are thinking of groping someone or grabbing someone or whatever. Maybe it'll make them think twice.
Do you think, Lynn, like where we live, when people come out of the pubs, do you think it'd be a good idea if they were on the lampposts or something?
Maybe. Or in the toilets.
Yeah. Yeah, which is where a lot of these posters are, actually. Or indeed, maybe at this stage, you know, these posters are aimed at grown men. Maybe we need to pull back. At this stage, you think the horse is bolted. If they're going to do that sort of behaviour, it's innately within them. Maybe we have to start much younger than that and start teaching boys and girls at school.
Should be at secondary school.
This is what's appropriate. Yeah, absolutely. And start talking about how behaviours and the actions of your behaviours, that it just needs to start much younger in their lives, as opposed to potentially seeing a poster on a tube one evening. But like you said, if it resonates with one person, potentially, Linda, it's done its job, obviously.